Question from Mauser58907 asking if we can see ship 34 from there and if it's getting frosty. They say I'd love for SpaceX to show it being tested during the flight. It's actually not being tested right now, and we just had Lab take a look at the Rocket Ranch camera, which is the one that you can go over to check out on the Lab Padre YouTube channel when testing is underway. But don't worry, you're not missing anything right now. Ship 33 is the star of the show today, along with Booster 14. So we will keep all of our attention focused on here, but you can head on over to Lab Padre's channel and check out the Rocket Ranch view for updates on that. And of course, Lab will post future updates on the progress of that testing. Time now, T-minus 47 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. We're just a couple minutes away, less than 2 minutes now until the start of ship LOX load. Now T-minus 45 minutes, 54 seconds and counting, and now SpaceX is beginning prop load on its ship upper stage, beginning with liquid oxygen. Time now, T-minus 43 minutes, 14 seconds and counting. We are just about 10 seconds away from the start of liquid methane flowing on board the ship upper stage as well. Starting now. Seeing some additional venting there from the tank farm as SpaceX is preparing to start fueling the booster stage here in the next several minutes. Start with first the liquid methane on board the booster, starting at T-minus 41 minutes and 24 seconds. That'll be followed by LOX load on the booster at T-minus 35 minutes and 28 seconds. Time now, T-minus 41 minutes, 24 seconds and counting, and now booster fuel load is underway. Time now, T-minus 39 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. Just a few minutes away from the start of booster LOX load. If you want to go back to that shot real quick, you can see the frost lines starting to form on the ship upper stage as liquid methane, liquid oxygen have been flowing on board the upper stage now for a few minutes. Also starting to see that liquid methane fuel line on the frost line from that on the booster as well. You look about halfway up the booster. Time now, T-minus 35 minutes, 27 seconds and counting. And at this point, the final fueling milestone is now underway. Liquid oxygen is flowing on board the booster stage of this fully integrated Starship rocket. Start to see that frost line form near the base of the Super Heavy booster. With that, want to bring back in our friend, Mr. Stephen Clark, space reporter over at Ars Technica. Works alongside Eric Berger over at the outlet. Stephen, welcome back. You're just in time to see the Starship really get frosty here.
Yes, happy to be back. And the ship is coming alive. Booster is too.
And we should be getting some views now from SpaceX momentarily. It looks like their webcast is starting, so we'll be working those into our live stream as well. Did want to wait till you were back, Stephen, to bring in one of the questions that we got, since it was specifically directed to you. Put it up on the screen so you can read it, and I'll say it out loud for those who may be visually impaired. For Clark, with the success of New Glenn, what aspirations do you see for Blue Moon this year now?
Yeah, that's a good question. The New Glenn rocket, of course, is going to be the launch vehicle for Blue Origin's Blue Moon lunar lander. And Blue Origin is developing two versions of that vehicle, the lander, Blue Moon Mark 1 and 2. Mark 1 is going to be a cargo version of the Blue Moon. Mark 2 will be the crew version, and it will perform much the same function as Starship for NASA as the human landing system. So NASA will have two human-rated lunar landers, from one from SpaceX, one from Blue Origin. And as for what's next for Blue Moon, Blue Origin plans to launch one of the early prototypes for Blue Moon on a test flight to attempt a landing on the moon, potentially before the end of the year. And that will be launching, of course, on the New Glenn rocket, probably several flights from now. And we mentioned earlier in the broadcast that NASA will have some, at least one science payload on the Blue Moon Mark 1 lander when it launches. And that will be the first of many test flights of Blue Moon leading up to its human rating for astronauts.
Great explanation of those two lander variants. Just listening into the start of the broadcast here, things are continuing to move smoothly for SpaceX with its Starship rocket. Taking a nice look at a drone view that's circling the pad right now. The next milestone that we're looking for as far as the fueling is coming up at T-minus 19 minutes and 40 seconds. That is the chill of the Raptor engines, both on the ship and the booster stage. So we're at T-minus 31 minutes, 8 seconds, and counting. Want to bring in a question from Gypsy King that may seem somewhat simple on the face of it, but you know, it's good for folks that are not as intimately familiar with the Starship program, Stephen. Not seeing it pop up on the screen, but the question reads, what is the reason for this launch? Is it the hopes of learning something or testing something? And you know, I'll start and let you pick up the football from where I leave off, but broadly speaking, the Starship program is an iterative development program where SpaceX flies, learns, changes, and tests by flying again. And so each time that they launch one of these Starship flights, they are looking to improve various facets, whether that's the something like the flap design on the forward part of the ship upper stage, the fueling process for either the booster or the ship, the tiles that protect the system as it comes back through the atmosphere, a whole host of things as they're learning towards a both fully reusable version of Starship, as well as one that can support payloads and eventually humans to low Earth orbit and beyond. Steven, you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think, Will, you explained it very well. And one thing I'll add, though, is I've heard SpaceX officials describes these Starship test flights with saying that the payload for these test flights is the data. You know, it's not carrying customer satellites or not going off on a mission to the moon with these test flights. These are data gathering and learning exercises. And so the payload is the data, quite literally. That's what the engineers want to get back. And they will learn something inevitably from this flight. Obviously, they want the flight to go well. There are some outcomes that are better than others for all these test flights. But whatever happens, they'll learn something. If it goes very poorly, which I don't expect, they'll learn something that went wrong, a design change that they need to make potentially that will improve the reliability of the next one. And if things go right, then they know what works, and they know that they have a design that is meeting requirements, and they can look at other areas of the vehicle to make improvements.
And it's also not that they're waiting to see exactly what goes right and what goes wrong with each individual one before they start the next flight hardware. As someone asked earlier about the status of Ship 34, they're already in the process of going through tests for the next ship upper stage that will fly in support of Flight 8. The booster for that mission also in work, and so they have quite a bit of hardware that is in flow down there at Starbase that they're working to learn from, and so that learning is extending out pretty far beyond just what is actually actively flying. Take this moment. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Stephen. I was just going to say briefly, want to take this moment to explain we're watching the trajectory animation for the nominal flight plan for Ship 7, or Flight 7, but go ahead.
Just agreeing with you, Will. I think you are exactly right. They have many ships, many boosters in undergoing at different stages of assembly and test right now at Starbase. One thing I wanted to mention briefly was back last summer, they had the ship, after the June test flight, which I believe was Flight 4, they had the ship for Flight 5 already built and nearly ready to fly. And based on what they learned from Flight 4 with the heat shield damage they observed during re-entry of the ship, SpaceX engineers decided to beef up and replace the entire heat shield on the subsequent vehicle, and that resulted in a delay of a couple of months to the launch date.
Getting a nice little bit of graphical overlay here as SpaceX commentators talking about the upgrades to the ship that's flying here. Also want to note, and maybe they'll point this out explicitly when they get down to the base of the Super Heavy booster, but in the realm of reuse and getting towards a fully reusable version of Starship, they are in fact reflying one of the Raptor engines that successfully returned to the tower here back during Flight 5. Believe that's number 314, or pie, which actually has a little decal of a slice of pie around it. So look for that to make an appearance at some point during the broadcast. Also, they're highlighting that these are a series of different types of tiles that'll be used as part of an experiment to test a variety of thermal protection systems to bring the ship back as safely as possible.